Hello and welcome to the Pages of Pixels podcast. I'm Rohan,
And I'm Kevin.
and this week we're talking about Parasite, this multiple Oscar-winning movie. Came out in 2019. It's actually the 5-year anniversary of when it won all the Oscars. I know it won Best International Feature, it won Best Director, and Best Picture at the Oscars, which um, being the first Korean film to win Best Picture. Uh, Correct.
Yeah, that is correct.
And you know, without any further ado, why don't you tell everyone what this movie's about?
Sure, the IMDb logline for Parasite is greed and class discrimination threaten the newly formed symbiotic relationship between the wealthy Park family and the destitute Kim clan. And yeah, so if you don't understand what that means, it's basically about a family that through some con artistry, convinces a rich family to employ them in order to for them to make a living. Because the Kims are really poor. They live in a basically an underground like basement type apartment,
Yeah,
and they make money by folding up pizza boxes, and that's like all of their jobs.
yeah. I
And
mean,
yeah,
they're very much. Um, I mean, they're very much on that edge of poverty. They're not homeless, so there's that. But then, they don't have their own Wi-Fi. They have to. They kind of hijack it from from the neighbor or like a coffee shop nearby. Um, and then, yeah, their lives kind of get turned around and I will probably pronounce this incorrectly, but when Kim Ki-woo, it gets turned around when a friend of his, Min, comes to visit and offers him a job as an English tutor. Um, Specifically, he offers him as a way to cover for him while he's traveling.
yeah, and I mean it's this offer that kind of sets off the big chain of events in the film. Kiwoo ends up actually just to make it easier on you. He also goes by Kevin in the
Yeah,
to the rest of the family. Um, Now, is he as great as this Kevin? I don't know, but he's definitely smart enough to like convince them that he is who he says he is, and he really he starts to find a way to get more of his family members in placement in the family, which starts with him getting his sister Jessica to be the art therapy teacher for their the park's young son.
yep. Which that's an amazing scene where she starts out because she doesn't start out as the therapy. She just starts out as an art teacher. And they establish that she has some knowledge in prep design and all that. Even when she makes the fake degree, they're just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god, it's so real. But then she, talking to the mother, concocts this story where he's like, hey, look at the drawings that your son is making. Oh, there's something really dark happening, and he needs art therapy, not just regular art. So her pay goes up, and then it's just slowly they start getting everyone hired. Obviously, she leaves her underwear in the back seat of the driver's of the car, and Mr. Park finds it, therefore hiring the father. Eventually, they get the current housekeeper fired, so hire to get the mother uh,
Mm-hmm.
to get the
And
mother hired.
during this whole like chain of events, I feel like Parasite is like a different half of the movie. Like the first half of this is not when you approach like a movie like this, like you kind of go in thinking like, oh, it's going to be of one genre, like oh, it's a
Yep.
thriller, it's a drama, it's a comedy, but Parasite it does a really good job of blending all of those together. And I think it treats its first half of the film as mostly, I would say, a comedy, kind of like a comedy of errors, where
Yep.
all of the scenarios that they get the family involved with the rich family is all done with comedic things that were planted earlier in the beginning and then get paid off. And I was talking to you this before we started the episode, but I do feel like Parasite is like the planned and payoff movie, which for those who don't know in screenwriting, um, a planned and payoff is basically when you see something earlier in the film, you're going to see it later. Usually that's like a Chekhov's gun, because like, oh, there's a gun on the wall and a character probably points to it, talks about it. They don't do anything with it, and then later on in the movie, the gun goes off. And
Yeah.
that's essentially what a plan to payoff is. And there's a lot of that in Parasite.
Oh yeah, from everything from The Rock, but like obviously there's The Rock, but then even small things of um we were talking about the sister. Well, her forgery skills were so good, and then she's kind of the mastermind who gets everyone else hired.
Hmm.
Of course, Kevin gets his sister Jessica, sis Jessica, not her actual name, but that's what they go by. But he gets her hired by just kind of telling a story. But she's the one um who comes up with the story about the art therapy and gets her fees bumped up.
Jessica, Chicago, Illinois, 25.
Yeah, she's the one who who said, "Hey, I'm gonna uh leave my underwear in the car, so and then we can get my father hired." She's the one who figures out the plan to get the housekeeper fired and then her mother hired. It's they're kind of establishing that hey, she is kind of the brains in this family. And then you see it when the Parks are out and um, she's in the tub alone, and then even the son says, "You look like you belong here." Um, and the biggest tragedy is that um, she's the one who dies at the end.
No, Jessica is probably. Jessica is one of my favorite characters in this. I don't. It's weird because I think Parasite is a movie where you can be like, this is my favorite family member. Like, it really has such a great understanding of all of its characters, from each and every family. And I do think that that brings us into, the big twist in the movie where, a lot of what has been set up is flipped on its head. And when we discover what's in the basement of the Park family's home, you start to see the housekeeper and her husband that we've not really known about in a completely different light, and it kind of brings the Kims back down to their level, like both metaphorically they are going, like sorry, symbolically they are going back downward to their
Into
poverty
the basement.
level. Yeah, when
Yep.
they go in the basement.
And it's also in that moment where they kind of go they realize how close they are, um, because that's the moment where they almost get exposed, and they know that
Mhm.
hey, if we get exposed, then we will lose everything that we got. Um, and it's an interesting it's interesting because they are there celebrating in the house, acting as if they are rich, like the Parks, when in reality they are still closer. They're closer to um, the old housekeeper and her husband in the basement. Um, they're nowhere near the Parks. They're kind of just acting that way. It's the same way how it reminds me a lot of how um, some people will say, "Hey, no, we shouldn't do more regulations on billionaires," and they always defend them. And but they're making um, even if you're making $100,000 a year, which is a pretty good income, you are much closer to being homeless than you are a billionaire.
That brings up a good like moral question that I was curious of your opinion. Do you think that it was morally wrong of the Kims to pull this act? Um, not leaving the not leaving the housemaid in the basement like after they've done like that damage. Like obviously it's not right to leave a person
Yeah.
basically allergic and, you know who had like accidentally fallen down the stairs in the basement, but more so just their crime of con artistry. Do you think it was morally okay for them to do?
Um, I think so. I think it's okay when Kevin gets hired and then he gets Jessica hired. I think up till that that's okay. Even Now, obviously, they're siblings, and they're not like she's not a cousin's friend like he says in the movie. But you know what? It's fine. They're just getting his sister hired. The art therapy thing that's like, okay, you're pushing a little bit. Where it is not, where I would kind of draw the line is when they actually get the driver fired.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get the old housekeeper fired. I mean, the driver thing is, well, the old housekeeper. First of all, they use peaches for her allergies. That's you are making, and then you're falsely accusing her of having tuberculosis, and not caring about the child
Mm-hmm.
either. And then they kind of falsely accuse the driver of assault, by making it, because when Mr. and Mrs. Park are discussing it, Mr. Park
Mm-hmm.
does say, "Hey, what kind of state are these women in where they would forget their underwear? What is he
Mm-hmm.
doing?" And he gets them fired, but it's like in their mind they fire him because they think he is a criminal.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's just like, where do you draw the line? I would probably draw the line in the same place. It is really funny how the parks jump so quickly to the conclusion after seeing the underwear. Like they don't investigate it. They don't ask him about it. they just kind of just assume it and then fire him. And then with the maid, the housekeeper, she's like, they don't even question the TB stuff. They don't question her
Yeah.
health. They just kind of just let her go, and it's
Hmm.
like it's pretty funny. Um, like it's funny to us, but like really, like this was their livelihood. This was what they were
Yeah.
working for. It was
And she
a.
has a lot. Her stakes are pretty high because her husband is living in that basement. Obviously, they don't know
Mhm.
that, but
What did you make of the ending of this movie? I'd say that for the most part, the film is very well received, but of all the things that is poorly received, or like that I tend to hear, there are some people that think the ending could have been better.
yeah, I think so. It's funny because you mentioned that this movie kind of takes a turn in the midpoint where it's kind of going one direction and then the movie goes nope and completely changes. At first, um, I was not 100% on board. It didn't ruin the movie or anything for me, but I definitely, the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, this first half is a masterpiece. The second half is still good, but not quite as good. And I was like, I didn't think they needed to go there. I kind of wished it had been a straightforward drama. And then I watched it again. Um, and I still believe that the first half is better. I mean, I just think that first half, of this movie is like just perfect filmmaking. The second half, I would say, is near perfect. Uh, it's because it works with themes, and you talk about plans and payoffs. It works with those plans and payoffs. In I mean, we see the Kims get the driver fired and get the housekeeper fired. They don't really. It just shows that they don't care um about their fellow working class um men and women, and they will step on their heads to get ahead. They'll step on them to get ahead.
Hmm.
And then finally, when we have the moment where the housekeeper begs, and says, "Hey, sis, please help me out," it wasn't even a big ask. It was just, "Hey,
Just
just
feed
let my
him.
husband be
That's all.
here. Give him some food every now and then. That's it." And the response was, "Don't call me sis." And she was like, "No, I'm not going to help you." So it kind of just the betrayal of that. So it really ended up working for me. And even the very ending um, where the father kills Mr. Park, uh, again, not something that worked for me the first time. The second time, I was like, it works.
Hmm.
Because I stopped viewing it as. I mean, I understood that. Hey, these are. I understood more about why he did what he did. I don't think murder is good, but like, but it just made sense in terms of the headspace of that character.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I do think that when I first watched the movie, I was a little bit confused by the ending, but when you rewatch it, it is very easy to see like where the pieces come together, and when you're paying attention to the things that you didn't see the first time, one of the most obvious things that impacts the movie greatly is smell. We first learn about the smell when the kid Dasong ends up like sniffing
Yeah,
both the parents, and it's like they smell the same, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Go away!" And then later, you can hear Mr. Park talking about how bad Mr. Kim smells, and
yeah,
when he goes further and further into that, you can tell that's like it's hitting a personal nerve. And in the backyard party scene, when he holds his nose to uh, the husband that was in the basement, I think that's where it like clearly struck a nerve with him, and
yeah,
it's less about like feeling personally offended, but also the husband character of the housekeeper, he dedicated the only bit of his life to helping Mr. Park. He was thanking him for giving him a house,
yep.
even though they have never met.
Respect.
He's like, respect! And I think seeing the fact that Mr. Park had no respect for him at all, I mean, obviously, Mr. Park's not going to know who he is, but still, seeing that definitely just caused like a reaction out of him that just complete like in all of the chaos led to that.
Yeah,
And it's very realistic. There are many people who have gone to prison, gone to therapy for their actions that come out of nowhere and they aren't able to control. And this just seemed like a very reasonable human moment that just ended in a tragedy. Especially because like his daughter was just stabbed too. Like he's probably
yeah,
really pissed because Mr. Park's like go go go, and it's like she's lying there bleeding. Like
yeah,
it was a very it was a deserved freak out. It wasn't a deserved death. Is all I'm saying. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, did Mr. Park deserve to die? Probably not. I mean, we don't know what he did for a living. We don't know if he was a complete and total asshole. But um, in a movie, the scene works, and from a character's perspective, it works. Obviously, this is real life. It's a bit different.
Hmm. Just curious, have you seen the black and white cut of this movie?
I did not know that existed.
Yeah, there's a black and white cut that I think is available only in DVD, and it came out briefly in theaters after it won the
Huh?
Oscar.
Have you seen it?
I have not because I don't have it on DVD. But I've heard mixed reception. I think it's an element that is very interesting because I think the way that they frame it is like the parks live in like I think a very vibrant area, so like the lighting is very different to when they're in the Kim's
Right.
basement. So I think they play around with that, but I do think ultimately the version in color is like I don't know. That's probably the one that I would prefer. I would probably only watch the black and white one once just to see what it's all about.
Yeah, there's been a lot of these black and white versions of movies where I don't know, I feel mixed about it. I remember one of the first ones that I heard about was Mad Max Fury Road, or I think they called it the Chrome edition, where it was black and white.
Everything
And
is chrome.
um and I mean I never ended up watching it, so take my knocking. I don't want to really knock something that I haven't seen, but
Hmm.
the reason why I never ended up watching it was because, like the visuals of Mad Max Fury Road, I love the way it's colored. I feel like going black and white, you're taking that away. There's also a black and white version of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Um,
Hmm.
Not only is it black and white, but John Williams' score has been taken out and replaced with the score from The Social Network.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about this. I'm
Yeah,
so curious about that because there's so many Star Wars re-edits, and I want to see. I want to see a lot of them, like especially the one that's like the better edit of um the prequels. I've always wanted to see those.
okay. Oh, the anti-cheese edits is, I believe, what they're called.
Yeah, but I like Jar Jar. I don't think Jar Jar's that bad. But we should stay on Parasite.
What's something that you would say stood out to you in this movie?
I mean, a lot stands out in Parasite, but I would say my favorite element or my favorite moment is the flood scene. It is one of the best
Yeah.
low points in film for me. It's just a really effective scene. When they're seeing them walk home, just beautiful cinematography. Um, the music and score gets like really low and kind of like it's just very serene and beautiful. And then when they get home and they realize that their whole house is flooded, and going back again to the plans and payoffs that I think is so successful in this movie, they left the window open because they expected to come home sooner, and
Yep.
they left it open because of the pest control. They like to let the pesticide in to kill all the fleas that are inside,
Hmm.
and that led to their whole house being flooded. Now, granted, I think their house would have been flooded regardless of that. It was completely like above the line, but that scene is really striking. Just what they do with like the lights flickering, Jessica sitting on the toilet, finding her stash of cigarettes and smoking on a bubbling toilet. This that scene is so awesome, and that's why she's my favorite because like that scene just goes so hard. Um, and then it's juxtaposed with um, the Morse code scene where the lights are flickering at the Kim's house, and he's letting the kid know about Chung Suk, which is the Kim's mom, being an imposter. So to see.
Yeah. I think that's I love that scene, but you mentioned the Morse code. I think that's my only kind of it is
Mm.
a bit of a loose end where they mention that the kid will recognize it. And then nothing really comes of it.
Yeah, I think he tries to say something to his mom, but she just doesn't pay attention. Um, but
Yeah,
it just it's believable to me because it's a kid who
I agree.
he's it, it's something to worry about, and you're like, oh, that's gonna happen. But then later when they come back, they're like, they had intended to give them some food. They were gonna come down and be generous and give them what
Yeah.
they wanted. But then they get intercepted by the mom and
Yep.
turned away. So yeah, like there's a lot of moments where it seems like one thing's gonna happen, and then the movie just pulls you like you know by the neck, and you don't know where you're gonna go next, and that's why I really just love this movie. What stood out for you?
So I'm gonna go with a sequence, a scene or sequence more, but specifically it's the part where they get the housekeeper fired and the mom introduced. First of all, the plan was super intricate, super clever. Um, where they're gonna use peach fuzz because she's allergic. Just a little sprinkle on the back of her neck. She's gonna start sneezing and all that, and then she's gonna go to the hospital. Mr. Kim's gonna go and take a selfie, uh, and um, and then he has a whole script where he's talking to the mom, and they even have the moment of them practicing. We've seen stuff like
Mm.
that before, um, but just the editing in this scene, um, or in this sequence, was incredible. I don't remember if this movie won Best Editing. There's a good chance it did because I know a lot. No, it didn't really.
I'm pretty sure it didn't because the
Was it 1917?
yeah, I think it had a weird year where like people were predicting 1917. Yeah.
It was Ford versus Ferrari, actually.
Hey, I remember that happening because that one like sound and editing. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. It's like
Regardless, I think that moment is potentially the best edited movie, or the best edited moment, or best edited montage I've ever seen in film. It's just there is an energy, and watching that moment is kind of when I was watching that movie. That's when I was like, this is a top three movie of the year. It's yeah, I mean, it's just incredible, and its editing is something that I don't think people think about much. I know people really steeped into the industry who watch a ton of movies like we do. We think about it. A lot of people don't think about it, especially casual viewers. Though it does impact them, even if they don't notice it. That's one of the times where it's not something I really noticed the first time I'm watching it. The second time watching it more, analytically. It's every little snippet is just perfectly paced. There are certain snippets that are longer, certain ones that are shorter. Um, the musical score, the score is like it's cutting, or the music is going. It's having its beats alongside the cuts. It sounds very simple, uh, but not a lot of movies do it.
Yeah, I mean, it is the word comes to mind, immaculate, I think. I just
Yep.
love that montage. I mean, it's really splitting hairs between scenes that like you love, but like
Yeah.
you can't look away from that scene. It is just really fantastic. The score complements it really well, and I think the cherry on top is more like the little hot sauce packet at the end. Again,
Oh yeah.
a plant and payoff with the pizza, and then they spray it, like squeeze it out when they're like, we need to have a plan, and then when he pours it over the tissue and it looks like blood,
Yeah.
it's just so awesome.
And the reaction of the mother, where she does a and almost like acts like she's about to faint. But then they cut away right before, because you're laughing because she's like, oh, she's about to faint. But I think if they showed her actually like fall to the floor, it would have been too silly.
Yeah, just a
I don't
bit.
know. Maybe they shot it, um, and in the editing room they decided, you know what, it works better without it. But even that is a testament to the editing. You know when to stop.
Hmm. Yeah, they really know they know how to linger on a scene and then know when to move quick. And I mean, this movie moves pretty fast, honestly, for like a two
Oh
hour
yeah.
movie. It's just like there's nothing. If you go to get up during like the movie theater and like go to the bathroom during Parasite, you're missing out on something
Yes.
at some point. Just awesome all the way around. I can't sing the praises of this movie enough. And yeah, I mean, I guess that means we should probably get into our ratings.
Yep. All right. So as a reminder, or if you're new here, the way we rate things or rate films is on a script cover scale. There's pass when we don't really like the movie. There is consider when we think it's decent, and then there is a recommend when we think it's like actually a really great movie. As a reminder, this is not an actual recommendation; it's just a score. So with that said, how do you rate Parasite?
Well, for the record, I only hire people that I recommend. So I am going to give Parasite the full recommend because it is, in my eyes, a perfect movie. I have no flaws with it. I'm not saying it's my favorite movie of all time. We've already covered Rear Window. You should check that episode out. Um, but Parasite for me is perfect because I just think it does a really good job tying all of its story elements and its technical elements together to create a product that just I can watch anytime. I literally thought when watching it, I was like, maybe this is my favorite movie of all time. And even though it's not, and even though I even like one Bong Joon-ho movie slightly more than this, I can't help but love the amount of effort and the amount of just pure like talent that went into creating a movie like this. I don't know. I wish I could go back and like erase my memory and watch it for the first time.
Mhm. Um, yeah, Parasite is one of my favorite movies of all time. Just I absolutely love this movie. This is an easy recommend for me. I don't know if you know this. Rotten Tomatoes recently made a list of the best movies uh, of the past 25 years, and Parasite ranked number two on that list.
It's
I have
very
some,
deserving.
yep, very deserving. Number one, Mad Max Fury Road.
That's interesting. I mean, I
Yeah,
love Mad Max Fury Road. I think it's so awesome. I don't think it I don't think it has the same level of like story for me as this movie, but uh, you know, speaking of lists, I know that on Letterboxd it used to be ranked number one, and then for a short time it got unseated by um, Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now both of those movies have moved down, and Parasite is now ranked number
Really?
9. Yeah.
Oh, what is the number one? I was gonna ask.
I think right now it's Harakiri.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have not seen that.
it's a Japanese film from the 60s, I want to say. It's really good. Um, very very solid movie, but I love Parasite way more than that. But with that said, what film would you recommend to those who like Parasite?
I am gonna recommend The White Tiger. I believe this movie came out around at the same time as Parasite. But it was straight to Netflix, and it dealt with similar themes of Parasite. And I mean, oh wait, it's not as good as Parasite, but there's very very few movies that are. But if you do like Parasite, I really think you'll like The White Tiger. It's kind of the closest thing to an Indian version of Parasite that you that is out there. It stars Rajkumar Rao, Priyanka Chopra, and a bunch of other pretty big names. Highly, highly recommend it.
It's been on my watch list for a while, and I love Rajkumar Rao, so I definitely will watch it sometime soon.
I think you'd like it quite a bit. Also, I was wrong. This movie came out like 2 years after Parasite did, so it's
Hmm.
not around the same time.
I'm surprised. I actually thought that movie was a bit older than it was, but I guess not. I forget that Parasite's not 2020; it's like 2019.
Yeah.
Well, my recommendation would be this. It's a film called The Housemaid, not to be confused with The Handmaiden. This is a Korean film from. It's rather old, and it's one of the films that was actually recovered by Martin Scorsese's Film Archive. He basically like did this project. It's like the World Cinema Project, where he recovered a bunch of lost films that were really hard to find, and then they all of those movies got put into the Criterion Collection for DVD. That's kind of how I heard about this movie. But then I also learned that Bong Joon-ho, the director of Parasite, uh, watched this movie and got inspired to write Parasite from it. It's it's very similar. It's about a plot between this main character who's rich and he hires this housemaid, and she kind of changes her life and her involvement in his life, which ends up really impacting him and his love life with his wife and everything. So it's kind of more of like a deep seated like drama. Uh, it's very dark. It's a lot darker than Parasite in my opinion, but it's definitely well worth the watch if you. It's not like I would say that this recommendation comes more from the value of if you love Parasite and want to see why what its influence is, you should watch this. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome. I have not seen that movie. I will probably check it out, especially because of the fact that if it's a thing that Bong Joon-ho got inspired by, then it's like I gotta check it out.
I thought it was a really solid movie. I do think it's a bit over dramatic at points, but also I'm thinking of the era, like a film, like there's a lot of over
Yeah.
dramatic melodrama type movies. So, yeah. What else have you been watching?
I'm glad you asked. I actually recently watched the documentary Sugarcane. It's available on Hulu, and I believe it's nominated for Best Picture as well. And it's a tough documentary to watch. It's really about the it's about the movie chronicles the director and who's investigating, I believe, his father's story, and as a result of stories of others who are basically Native American children. Now this does take place in Canada, but they were taken to kind of Catholic schools and essentially um, abused. Uh, it is, and there's been you can do research on it. It's funny because, or it's not funny, but it's interesting because I read a book uh, a few years ago, um, which was about a therapist uh, chronicling some of her stories with some of her patients. Obviously, she changed the names and everything. And one of the patients was a child who grew up or from a Native American family, but was essentially kidnapped and sent to a Catholic school. where he had to shed his name, his culture. He was abused constantly, and it was an amazing it was an amazing book, and that really made me more interested um, to watch this film. And documentary was incredible, hard to watch, but important to watch, and very well made as well.
I'll check it out. That definitely does sound very upsetting, but I can stomach that kind of content. It's just very, you just got to kind of prepare yourself whenever you're dealing with something of that subject matter, um, especially that.
Mhm.
I just recently watched Hard Eyes. Um, it is a horror slasher movie that is in theaters now. Perfect for Valentine's Day, although that will be slightly after this episode is posted. So if you if you missed it Valentine's Day, now's a good time to check it out. Um, I think it's a solid movie. I thought it was really funny. It's from the same director who made Werewolves Within, and it also stars Mason Gooding from Scream, Devon Sawa from the Final Destination movies. I think this cast is really funny. They know how to deliver like really great lines. There are two side characters that are like hilarious, and I couldn't. I don't know. I think while the laughs kind of die down in like the last like 30 minutes of the movie, I do think that it's a really funny watch. And the Hard Eyes Killer, or HEK as they call him, is just like a really creative like slasher villain. He's got like a ninja star type thing where like it has a heart in it, and then a crossbow and bows that like he has like bows that like open up like whenever you he clicks a button, so it's kind of like a arrow that will like go through like a hand or something, stuff like that. That's like really silly, really campy, but it's a lot of fun.
That's yeah. I want to check it out. I don't know if I'll be able to check it out like in theaters, but I will try. Because it does look like fun. It does look like a lot of fun, and I believe you mentioned this same director of Werewolves Within, which
Hmm.
I also had a lot of fun with that movie.
Yeah, and I think this one's like on par or like just a bit better. But I mean, who cares? They're just really funny movies, all around. Before we actually wrap up, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts were on the American Parasite remake that has seemingly vanished. The one that's supposed to be produced by Sam Mendes, I think.
Um, yeah, I heard about that a long time ago. Um, and then nothing kind of came out from it. I know a lot of people, everyone was like, nope, this is going to be really bad. And it wasn't Sam Mendes, it was actually Adam McKay, I believe.
Oh, Adam McKay. That makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah.
but I was willing to give it a chance because it was going to be Bong Joon-ho very heavily involved in it. I don't think it ended up happening, but
Yeah.
it's if it does, I'll watch it with an open mind. I don't hate remakes the way many people do. No, because it's not like the original is gone. And sometimes I think that when a remake is made and it comes out, many times it might actually. This happens with me where it's like, oh, I haven't seen that original. Let me check it out before the new one comes out. So I might actually send more people to watch the original Parasite if they haven't seen it already. So
Mhm.
so I'm not against it.
I'm torn because like I don't mind the idea of Parasite existing. Like if it was just one remake, I think it's whatever. Like I get it. But I feel like part of my problem with it is it does feel like it's more of a cash grab remake than it is a
Hmm.
creative remake. Then I heard a little bit more about it. Like I heard it was like going to be like an anthology of multiple like parasitic type of stories in one, and it wasn't going to be a movie. It was going to be a show. I just kept hearing so many confusing things about what it is or what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I haven't seen many new things come out about that now, but I mean, I just personally think like it depends because again, it's like using Squid Game, which we just covered recently, right? Like there's supposed to be a David Fincher American remake, and there's the
Yeah.
MTV or there's the Squid Game The Challenge. I almost said MTV The Challenge because the cast just got leaked recently. Um, but the but yeah, Squid Game The Challenge. It's like they're taking a story that is about like class and capitalism, and then they're trying to
Yeah,
basically make more money off of it. And I just think that's kind of like scummy. And but I mean, it's a movie that made a lot of money to begin with. So I guess where do you again, kind of going back to what we said earlier, where do you draw the line? I'm just like, I don't know. I'll stick to the movie that won my heart and made me dive deeper into other foreign movies because that's what Parasite did for me. So.
yeah. No, I mean I agree with that. Where it is a bit ironic, where you're taking a movie about class and trying to make it again to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that does kind of that irony does exist. I mean, Glass Onion was um an awesome movie in my opinion. It was also about class, made by Netflix, one of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Pages to Pixels podcast. I'm Kevin,
I'm Rohan.
and stay tuned next week for another episode. Thank you.
Thank you.